Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Casanelli is back, and we start things out by being very excited because Matter has introduced a spec for TV that means casting your favorite video to different devices is suddenly going to become easier as soon as Matter rolls around. Then we talk about Eve and its plans to use Matter, that Opal camera everybody's talking about, plus a lot more to cover in this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by userway.org. Userway ensures your website is accessible, ADA compliant, and helps your business avoid accessibility-related lawsuits. The perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also the law. Go to userway.org/twit for 30% off Userway's AI-powered accessibility solution. And by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Join more than 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/STT. Hello and welcome to Smart Tech Today, the show where we talk about the exciting, dynamic, and sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. It's dynamic like my change in pacing for that intro there. I am one of your hosts, Micah Sargent.
And I am your other host, Matthew Casanelli. Hello, Micah. How you doing?
Howdy there, Matthew. I am doing well. I am, deep in the throes of the holidays as they fast approach. Really. 3 days away from me officially turning 1 year older as I creep ever closer to a certain, I won't say what sort of marker, but I creep ever closer
turning
to
19, right? I think
turning 19. How did you guess?
Wow.
So yes, that's happening. And then 6 days from that, it'll be Christmas. And I've got a few craft projects I need to finish before then. So it's kind of like in my spare time away from things. Yeah, it's crunch time. Precisely. It's crunch time.
You're the elf working hard on the presents.
Exactly. I've got my little hammer and my little screwdriver, and it's all just happening. But let's get into the show. The first thing we're going to talk about today is one that I am so happy to be able to chat with you about. Matter, which is this thing, this nebulous thing we've been talking about for quite some time, is this what seems to be a true and final agreement that the smart home needs to have. It needs to have kind of an agreed upon language that all devices, no matter which one you get from which company, can communicate together, right? That they can all speak the same language. So I can talk to my HomePod Mini, I can talk to my Nest, I can push a button on a display, and they will do the proper kind of exchange of communication between those devices. And the reason why we say this is kind of like this is the big thing is because these things have been promised in the past, but they've never truly fully come to fruition. There are some companies who hop on board and others who don't. This is the first time that we've seen truly all of these companies come together and say, you know what? I'm Apple, I'm Google, I'm Samsung, I'm all of these different companies, smart home device manufacturers all coming together and saying, we're actually going to play ball this time. And one of the places that I hadn't considered them all playing ball was in casting. So this was one thing that I just had not considered as part of a beauty that is Matter. And yet here it's happened. So Matter has released a spec, which it basically just says like, it's an outline of a thing that they're planning on doing. And Matter's TV spec is aimed at making sure that all of these things can work together with control, with volume up and down, with switching between HDMI, like all the stuff that I'm used to right now, because I have a TCL Roku TV that is connected to HomeKit and AirPlay, I can on my phone pull up and make adjustments to that. But if I was to get a different phone or something like that, I may have trouble making that happen. But casting, there are different casting methods. There's Google's own Cast, there's Apple's AirPlay, and then there are some other ones. But what if I could, on my iPhone, pick it up and cast to any of the devices in my home, a Nest Hub that I have nearby, a 15-inch Echo that I have on my wall, the Echo Show that I have on my wall, any of those devices, if they could all play together. Now, right now, the way that this is working is it's all app-based. So that way, because the devices aren't going to be, Matter supported until the coming year and then some years after. So in the meantime, the way that they're making this work is by letting the apps kind of set up this functionality so that if you've got an app on your iPhone, for example, the Netflix app on your iPhone, you could immediately, over the network, find the Netflix app that is on your Apple TV or on your television itself, and those two can talk to each other and let it know that you want to cast. But what they eventually want to do is make sure that the devices themselves are Matter supported so that you don't have to have a specific app or anything like that. If the device is Matter supported and the other device is Matter supported, then those two can cast to one another. And it goes even further with that. What I love about this is that all of the apps who add the Matter video spec have to play ball entirely, meaning that if they want to claim that they've got Matter functionality, then they have to be able to use all parts of this. So no company can say, okay, we want to give people access to, the control mechanism, but we don't want to give people access to the casting mechanism. So I don't know about you, Matthew, but this was the first time where Matter released something that was so clearly exciting and so clearly clear, if you will, that this is game changing and in a way that I think anybody can understand.
Yeah, it's just kind of like taking away those pain points and unifying it all under one spec that actually will make that difference too. And that part about it being required to support all these different parts of it is a big deal too. I think what's super interesting as they go into it too is, in reality, what's happening is communication across these devices. As much as it's sending the signals about what to turn on, it can just send messages too. And so casting does seem like it's, first of all, like the big one of like, I've always wanted to use Chromecast, but I only had the Apple devices. And so like just going across devices was never exactly right. And I never really built that habit. Whereas now it does seem like it could be just device to device. But they're talking about too, how you can send messaging across where the TV can know that somebody's at the front door, or like the fact that you're in that room with the TV and it'll only notify you there and not in all of the other rooms and things like that. Some of the other parts also that I just imagine, they're saying ultimately what it's doing is launching a URL on another device. And as someone who came from workflow and now shortcuts in many ways is triggering, I guess maybe the specification of shortcuts isn't URLs anymore, but ultimately it is pointing to a specific part of a specific app and telling it to do something. And so I'm actually curious. I honestly hadn't considered this either, but if there is a kind of shortcut support across Matter through these messages thing where it just tells that other app to open this URL to the app that's on that device. And then even I went into just like, you can't control an Apple Watch from the iPad and your Mac and things like that. And so if Apple adopting Matter meant that all of its devices, beyond just like what it has with continuity and handoff, could actually communicate directly with each other as well, just technology in general using all this stuff does seem incredibly powerful. I'm not sure actually, I don't know if Matter can work with the Apple products that way in the same direction, but even still, if you can use a HomePod to launch it across the other device or something like that, or even this just setting the groundwork for more connectivity across and sort of the standards of how these things work can just be really cool. So I think that's very interesting. And like the smart notifications, as much as like, I don't want every single Echo device going off in my house every time I get a notification. I just want the one that's near me. And so those impacts also can make these truly smart homes and not just smart devices. So I'm super interested.
Yeah. Isn't that, it's interesting. The state of the smart home right now is a home within which we have a bunch of smart devices. I should say for many people, there are few people out there who have, crafted their smart home. And I think Rosemary is a good example of this in particular, who somehow gets all of those servers and clouds to work together to provide for the automation. But some of us, have a few automations set up, and most of it is just different smart home devices that kind of exist on their own. So this idea of bringing them together and doing it in a way that like you and I can understand in particular, or not, I should say that you and I can understand, but that we can grasp so easily, that it's, it's link based. So you have this idea of like, I'm watching something on Netflix, and that Netflix URL, whenever I choose to cast it to the other TV, has the content ID and then has that little ampersand. And then there's the time code, the precise time code that I'm at in the thing that I'm watching. Then the app on the other side pops open that URL and, properly gets access to the show, picking up right where I left off. And so, yeah, you can start to see for you how you would be able to leverage those URLs and the way that they're encoding them to be able to set these things up on your own, even outside of Matter, which would be kind of interesting. So I'm looking closer at this stuff.
Things. Sorry, there are kind of things like that's kind of what I do with shortcuts and Netflix sometimes. Is if usually the simplest thing is just sharing content from any app, it will create a unique ID, and then that ID is universal across the entire platform. And so just telling the Apple TV to open 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 episode or whatever like that, it should be able to know it. And it's as much just about having a spec to be able to do it, as much as all these apps really are is in the interface. When you click on the icon for the thing, it's clicking a URL that opens that thing anyways. So it's already kind of all there, and this is just connecting it, which is super powerful.
It's pretty incredible the how much deep linking has made a difference in all sorts of automations that we do all the time, and how that's kind of set the basis. Because there was a time where you kind of just had this basic access via a link that you then had to drill down into things. And now I can access any part of the settings app at any time if I want to. I can get access to any of those things. So it's really kind of interesting seeing all of these different, not only just the platforms, but the operating systems all start to find a way that they can work together, and that there is this common language that exists out there. And the sort of foundation that you folks have set with shortcuts and workflow in the iOS side of things. So very, very cool. And I couldn't miss talking about universal casting.
Totally.
This next one, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I've been using Chromecast in my office too. So like I want to have that functionality just alone, and then everything else that it enables too is going to be so cool. And like a good example, just to go into the next story, is that companies like Eve are actually planning to use Matter to go beyond just HomeKit. And there's this Verge article that kind of talks about how Eve in general has been making this huge transition into Matter and is going to keep going into the next year. But what it really does mean is that they'll be able to add support for Google Home and things like that in ways that they never could without actually going into the cloud, because that's kind of been their problem, is they don't want to do that. They don't want to be one of those creepy companies. And so that's why, I'm really glad we interviewed them, and I'm glad that like just to see them way ahead of the game in terms of this and continuing to talk to the press and be like, this is a major commitment for us. I don't think I've seen any other company doing that. So
the one thing that I wanted to talk about with this, I actually had a chance to talk to the folks at Eve, which was really exciting, and hear kind of about the plans going forward with Matter. What's so amazing to me is that Eve has been working on this for so long that they have spent the money to build out the necessary equipment so that when you bought these devices, all it took was a firmware update. This is something they've been working on and building into their products for so long. And so that was one of the things that the I believe it's the CEO who I was talking to had mentioned, is that, hey, look, it may have cost us a couple of more dollars when we were producing these devices, but it was so worth it because look at what we're able to do now. And so they are kind of there on the ground floor with Matter and with Thread. And because of that, they're going to be able to, yes, move beyond HomeKit, because that was kind of their grounding right now to kick things off. It makes it very easy to set up with HomeKit. But once you've got Matter and Thread support going on, it suddenly becomes this platform that works across different devices. And I tell you what, I spoke again to Tim Booth, who we had on the show before, about the sort of, he just so perfectly explained what makes Thread and kind of local networking so much better than these cloud-based and server-based ways of doing automation, and how we've got these devices who don't speak one another's language and what it requires in order for those devices to speak one another's language. And it was this great diagram. Like, I wish I could play it back just because it was so well done. I needed to encourage them actually to have Tim just record that and post it somewhere, because I would share the heck out of it, because it talks about, like, you have an Amazon Echo device, and you have a HomePod Mini, and you have an Eve device that talks with the HomePod Mini, and those two can communicate with each other while they're also trying to communicate over Wi-Fi. And then they, if you want to communicate with this other non-standard smart plug, then it has to go up to the cloud and then come down and then communicate with it, and all of this stuff that gets in the way. So it was really interesting hearing them talk about that in such a clear way and kind of distill Eve's vision going forward. And I know we will continue to see Eve add Thread support first and foremost, because Thread's available as a method of communication right now, but later Matter being not a protocol, but instead sort of a blessing, then it's going to be good to go. So yeah, I just shout out to Eve for the work that they're doing, because I think that it's just exemplary of what you can do whenever you really focus on trying to make interoperable tech.
Totally. Let's talk about this webcam, because I'm very interested, but I've seen some people who are skeptical, and I feel like I'm all for it. And so the Opal C1 is I guess for now, a Mac-only webcam that is kind of doing the DSLR-like image quality effect. And it's kind of also just supposed to be a not bad-looking webcam. So it's a nice, cool design with a speaker grill on the front also, so it can have decent audio. And I think that's one thing that's definitely not true of most webcams, is having any sort of decent audio at all. Although I did see a YouTube review that kind of compared them, and the MacBooks improving their audio so much, I feel like does make a big difference, that maybe it doesn't matter as much for a Mac-only product right now. But I don't know. What do you think? It's $300. And so I think that's probably the main problem with it, because...
Yeah. So I think this is incredible, first of all. I think that the way that it looks is really cool. The idea is amazing, because we keep seeing these different webcams come out, but they continue to be webcams. They continue to be, still this kind of flat-faced, not very depth-based lens, and it's not super great. And so finally we have this webcam that is trying to be a DSLR, but simplified in the sense that, you don't have to have a DSLR and then HDMI capture and all that magic all coming together. Instead, it's just one simple little package. So that price, I think, is not a bad price if it works, if it looks good enough, and more importantly, the promise of all of these webcams. You've used the Logitech Brio, and the only thing I've ever heard about the Brio are complaints on complaints on complaints, because for some apps, the 4K doesn't work. For some apps, it zooms in weird. Sometimes it does the autofocus properly. Sometimes it doesn't.
Mine never does, but
exactly.
I will also say, though, it's the only 4K webcam that I would ever buy, because it's the only one that doesn't look terrible. So, I don't know if you can, if I switched, I don't have it right now, but to the Elgato Facecam from this, there is a very distinct flatness to that one that this one doesn't have. There is a bit of depth in this shot, and I think that's what matters to me the most with the Opal C1 that I would really have to test, because when I did the Elgato one, it just looked like a webcam stream still. And I want something that basically is just good enough to be not a webcam, while also I can use my actual camera to do real video work and have just this talking head shot, just use the camera that's on the computer that's in front of me that's right at eye level already, instead of doing an entire setup around it. And so if this is close enough, if it's better than the Brio, I will get it, because there's no reason not to, because it is just better. The price is probably the main thing, that it's $100 more than what would be the next best webcam. And so whether it adds another 50% of the quality to it is a question. It probably doesn't, honestly. So at a certain point, it's probably overpriced, but I do think some of the other features might make it worth it. So it's interesting. I'm intrigued. It's one of those that I'd have to test before I'd ever say whether or not it's worth it or not.
Yeah, my big concern is it going to have a bunch of software side things that make it magic, or is it just the hardware that makes it magic? If it's just the hardware, I'm not as worried about it, because even if it doesn't get firmware updates later on down the line, because the company... that sound, by the way, folks who are listening, that was just the sound of crashing and failing. I don't know why it came out that way, but it did. So if the company crashes and burns, which I don't want to happen, but sometimes that does happen, then you do need to make sure that you can use these things. Now, as Scooter X is pointing out in the chat, the website does quote over 20 plus. Okay, you don't need to say over and plus. More than 20 unique software features that improve your look and sound. So that's where I get a little worried, because, again, if it's just a hardware thing, then it's something that $200 now and $200 3 or 4 years from now, it's still the same, and I can use it and be happy with it. But I don't want to have to start paying a subscription service, or again, have the company go away and then it suddenly doesn't work anymore. So that's where I kind of go.
I think that would concern me more, though, if they weren't a Mac-based app right now. That actually makes me personally feel better, in terms of just the fact that they clearly are making a Mac app that, versus every other webcam, is this is for Windows, and by the way, we made a version for Mac one day, and it kind of works. And so I have zero faith in Logitech's Mac app at all. And then this being made only for Mac actually is okay, so a big thing right now is M1 support. And if you just don't support this entirely new platform that Apple is using going forward, it's kind of okay, I have no faith in this company, versus somebody like this that actually is making software for the Mac. My big thing is, I can't have my webcam stop working if I put a beta on this device. And that's a major thing. And so if they work on the betas and work with new hardware like that, then that actually can make a big difference. There's no Mac hardware accessory companies that I can't think of a single peripherals company that exists or dedicated to Apple stuff that isn't either than just about like iOS gadgets and little fun things too. Like this being Mac based actually gives me confidence in a way that otherwise it wouldn't. So I'm interested, and it's got like the Sony sensor and everything. So I want this company, and then I want competition for this company, and I want like I don't just want webcams to be the thing that we started to make good. It's like, no, this is all really good hardware that you can get, and good camera quality stuff that doesn't need to be a big webcam or a big DSLR too. So it can make a big difference. I'm excited because it's like I do video work. If I could just have that and then do my top-down shot on my iPad,
right?
Like this would make all the difference for my business alone. So.
Yeah, with the new mask mandates in place, we're once again sort of it's reaffirmed that we're working from home, and so I've been fine with my Logitech 1080p webcam, but this is the first time that I've seen one that actually did make me go, I would consider that. So let's take a quick break, and then we will come back with more news. I do want to tell you that this episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by userway.org. Userway is, I think, something anyone can get behind. Every website, without exception, it needs to be accessible because it's a public entity. That means that given the fact that the website is a public entity, it is required for the website to be accessible. But I think the real reason to do this is because it's just the right thing to do. It's federal ADA law that actually mandates equal access to services for all Americans. And you could be liable if your website does not meet ADA laws for accessibility. But again, that's one focus. The other focus is that it's just the right thing to do. There are many people out there who would love to be able to access your website who may not be able to because of their accessibility needs. Userway has an incredible AI-powered solution that tirelessly enforces the hundreds of WCAG guidelines. With just one line of JavaScript, Userway can achieve more than an entire team of developers. Userway's AI and machine learning solutions power accessibility for more than 1 million websites. It's trusted by Coca-Cola, Disney, eBay, FedEx, and many other leading brands. And now, Userway is making its best-in-class enterprise-level accessibility tools available to small and medium businesses. When you scale, you need Userway. An accessible and compliant website isn't only the right thing to do, it also just makes good business sense. The Achilles heel for websites are registration forms and nav menus and shopping carts that are not accessible. Millions of people will require Userway just to purchase your products. For years, Userway has been on the cutting edge, creating innovative accessibility technologies that push the envelope of what's possible with AI, machine learning, and computer vision. Userway's AI automatically fixes violations at the code level, and here are some of the things Userway does. It auto-generates image alts, it writes image descriptions for you, it remediates complex nav menus and ensures that all pop-ups are accessible, it fixes vague link violations and fixes any broken links, it ensures your website makes use of accessible colors while remaining true to your brand, and it gives you a detailed report of all the violations that were fixed on your website. And Userway is platform agnostic. Whether you're using WordPress or Shopify or Wix, Userway is cost-effective and easy to add. And the same goes for those of you using AEM, Sitecore, or SharePoint. Userway integrates seamlessly with all. Let Userway help your business meet its compliance goals and improve the experience for your users. Check out their free scanning tool to see if your website is ADA compliant. And by the way, we've got the voice of Siri, who's considered the world's most popular voice assistant, here to give you a message about Userway.
Userway is trusted by more than 1 million websites and 60 million users with disabilities. Visit userway.org to learn how one line of code can make your website accessible.
Thank you, Susan Bennett. Userway can make any website fully accessible and ADA compliant. With Userway, everyone who visits your site can browse seamlessly and customize it to fit their needs. It's also a perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. Go to userway.org/twit and get 30% off Userway's AI-powered accessibility solution. Userway, making the internet accessible for everyone. Visit userway.org/twit today. Thank you so much to UserWay for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. And now, back to the show. We were just talking about the Opal webcam. There's another webcam that is making the rounds because we're gearing up for CES, the artist formerly known as the Consumer Electronics Show, and Dell has an interesting idea for a webcam, one that just uses magnets to stick to the top of the screen.
Well, not just magnets, or not just the top of the screen, the center of the screen also. So it's like this little, it's a little wireless webcam that does have a cradle that it can sit on just normally on top of the screen. But if you want to actually make eye contact with the person while you're looking at something on the screen, you can take it off. And this is, okay, I should be clear. This is a CES concept. So in theory, you can take it off and stick it directly in the center of the screen, and then you will be looking at them in the eyes. And so this is like another exact thing that I run into all the time with webcams. Literally right now, I have my zoom window in the mini window only right up here at the top of my screen so that I can look at the webcam and then look at myself in the webcam and you, but then it also kind of looks like I'm looking at the screen. And I mean, I guess I've never gotten feedback on it, but does it look like I'm looking at the camera, or does it look like I'm looking underneath the camera? I'm curious if people have any opinion, but it's like a real thing that I've actually run into all the time, even when doing my other streams or like playing games, or I get the whole meta thing of like, if your camera is off to the left, when I produce a video, am I looking at the thing that I'm talking about, or am I looking off the screen in a way that doesn't make sense, and all these like silly kind of things. But it's like a cool concept. And especially for only 1080p, it's probably good enough quality to stream in mostly real time, or it's like, you obviously don't use it for live type things, but for any other stream, it's probably fine too. So like, it's actually a pretty cool concept, whether or not it works. And I assume it doesn't destroy your screen in the process. Like, it seems pretty cool. Did they address the part where, how does it, because my brain just goes to back in my day, when you put magnets on a screen, it destroyed the entire TV. So it's just like, my brain is I will always be afraid of putting magnets near a screen.
The technology today is so different, but I'm so with you. I can remember as a kid, I had this little extendable magnet that was meant for picking things up off the floor that you dropped. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And I'm just, moving it around. And then someone said something about not putting it on a TV. And of course,
then you have to do it.
You have to do it. Exactly. You're a child. You're a curious child. There's no way that I can't do it. So I did it, and it ruined the TV screen. That's like,
I feel like
why
you could
did
get
you tell
it fixed, but yes, also.
when I was a kid, TV started to be made with a degauss option, and it would basically send an electrical charge through the television that would undo what the magnet did. But at that time, this TV did not have a degauss option. When I was a kid, as I can remember in kindergarten, I fell and busted open my chin, and had to get stitches along my chin. And, I'm healing, everything's going great. And my mom says, go get in the shower and don't dance around because you might slip and fall and bust open your chin again. So she said, don't dance around in the shower because you might slip and fall. And I thought, I can dance without slipping and falling. I've never thought that I would slip and fall. What happened? I slipped, I fell, and I busted my chin open again. So I don't know. I've always had a problem with authority, I guess.
Yeah. Don't put your webcam in the center of your screen, or else you're going to fall in the shower. Something's there.
Yep, that's the connection. Oh boy. What's next? So Google Home got an update that I think is really important, because a lot of people have talked about, the Nest app being a little bit overburdened, the Ring app being a little overburdened, and then Google Home, which was supposed to be taking on kind of some of that stuff that the Nest app did. not doing a very good job of it. But there's been an update to make it easier to actually see that Nest footage.
Yeah, they're basically making it so that you can go in, and instead of having to go into like your whole history, you can see all of the major events and things like that. I like how they call the features too transport buttons. So they have, I don't know, that's just their weird way of talking about play, pause, back and forward and stuff like that. But it does just seem like this is a major, I don't know. It seems like the Nest app is like it's like on the way out or something, where they have been moving stuff into Google Home over time. And so this might just be a continuation of that. But just seems like a good quality control thing, especially if you've just been like, nobody wants to bounce in between these two apps. And so now that they're all kind of working together, it might still be better, even if you don't necessarily love it. But kind of just depends on where you're coming from in that Nest world.
Yes. So I think that, yeah, some people will rejoice over this. Others will go, I'm good. But just wanted to put that out there. This next story is, it's a really interesting thing because this feels like one of those, that's like, okay, a company sees that they've got a lot of people starting a job and then realizing they absolutely hate the job and leaving the job. There's so much churn, there's so much turnover. And so they convene a panel to figure out what they need to do to fix this. And there's some guy there whose nephew is super big into virtual reality, right? And he's like, oh man, my nephew, man, he just loves this virtual reality thing. I've got this great idea, this super great idea. So they play this game called Job Simulator, right? And in it, you pretend to work and you gain points while pretending to work. What if we let people try out a job before they have the job so they get an idea of whether or not it's a job they actually want? Now, here's the thing. This has a smart, at its root is a very smart idea, because there's the idea of the working interview. My partner was a huge fan of the working interview, which if someone's never had one, you basically go in and you are interviewing while you're also trying out the job, doing it to see if it's right for you, to see if it's a good fit, to see if you understand what's going on and whether everything is what you would expect it to be. And so that part of it totally makes sense. But I love how they thought, here's how we can make this happen is through the work of VR. So MGM Resorts is working to try and give people the opportunity to see what the job is like through virtual reality before they actually, take on the job and help to reduce, as they say, employee churn. I do wonder, Matthew, if this is partially a pandemic sort of stopgap measure, because that way people who are not coming in person yet are able to kind of see what the job would be like when things return to normal.
But kind of both too. I mean, I think that's they're just saying it's a common thing where you're like, oh, this job sounds great. But then once you actually do it for a while, you're like, oh, that's all there is or something like that. And you might not realize, or you might realize you didn't enjoy it as much as you would have. And so just kind of testing it out for a while without actually having to go through all that does seem like a pretty solid solution. I think what's funny about just the whole job simulator thing is, like, you were making that seem like a joke, but that's actually a real, like, one of the most popular VR games even.
It is, yeah.
I mean, there's not that many VR games, so I think that might be part of it, but it is just kind of like,
I've played it, it's fun.
That's not a thing in theory. Yeah, I mean, when you were saying that too, the only thing that I heard was that you get points. And I was like, man, I wonder what it would be like if any jobs actually gave people recognition, because that's probably what they need most of the time and never get it. And stuff like that. I work by myself, so I don't have that problem. Although maybe I should give myself some recognition. Good job.
You should, Matthew. I spent like half an hour, 45 minutes playing a really low quality like low resolution barista game with the Oculus Quest the other day. It's been a while now, like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was just wanting to update the Oculus Quest 2 because that's about the only thing I'm doing with it these days. And so I was updating the Oculus Quest 2 and I launched it. It does this like multi-browser, multi-app kind of thing now. And on the browser, there was a recommendation for some online VR games, and one of them was just being a barista. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'll click on, there it is. Oh my goodness. So I clicked to play it, and it's like, it's low res. It's not anything special.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with most VR games.
Yeah, especially the ones online, which have to be kind of lower quality. But anyway, I sat there and played it for quite a while, and I was like, oh man, I'm really getting the hang of this now. I know that I need to quickly get the what do they call that? The puck of coffee after it's been extracted into the trash in time. And then I can have like 3 or 4 cups sitting here while I wait for the next person to come in. And it's the sounds are very simple. The person comes in and goes like, oh, or oh, wow.
That's funny.
And they're each asking for a cup of coffee, and you just have to do it in a certain amount of time.
I remember that stress. I worked at Jamba Juice though, and I remember like the stress the first time being on the register and stuff like that, where you are just like processing so much information and in real time, and you can lose your job for it in your income. So like there's a lot that goes on with it, and actually getting to practice before you do it could actually help. So I don't know. It's intriguing. I mean, everything's the metaverse nowadays, apparently, or something like that. So I mean, that's what this next story is. That
wow.
Also, though, I love though reading a story that's coming from somebody like who works at Intel and is like, oh, there's no way the metaverse is happening anytime soon. It does just sound like this guy's gonna like have egg on his face in a couple of years when it's huge or something like that. But do you want to like summarize his points? I mean,
yeah, I'll summarize.
It needs to be a lot more powerful. Is mostly it. But.
So Intel put out a blog post talking about kind of what is going to be required for the metaverse to truly kick off, and essentially the argument is that there's not enough compute power. Wow. There's not enough compute power available right now to do what the metaverse really wants to do, which is to be this platform that has so much kind of built into it. Yeah, exactly. That you've got sort of real time communication. It happens across different devices, and we've got not only an issue with compute power in terms of what the different servers and processes are able to handle, but also our internet is not up to snuff for doing this, to have kind of a whole world of VR going on. And so that argument, I think, is understandable. And IBM, I mean, hey, they've been around a long time and they do a lot of computational processing stuff. And this ultimately ended up being a bit of an advertisement for its own processors, because at the end, they're like, so right now, you know, the standard curve of how technology grows over time, it would take this many years to get where it needs to be. But in the meantime, you can use things like AI and what could be soon transistor stacking and this and that and the other. And then conveniently, they're like, and Intel and its chips, or IBM and its Intel and its chips that are coming out soon will be able to do these things. So yeah, it was a little bit of an advertisement for its own chips. Like, you know, it's going to take 100 years unless you use Intel chips, in which case it'll be next year and in the next 5 years. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing that we haven't talked about like too in depth on this show is just the difference between Intel and Apple's latest chips and how powerful and I'm trying to think of the right term, just like non-consumptive. That's not the right way to say it, but just like they don't use that much power while giving a lot of capability. And those kind of things are inevitably going to leak into the iPhone and things like that. Or, I mean, this kind of thing, I had never thought about this until just because we were talking about Matter earlier, but I wonder if smart home, and I mean, not like Matter per se, but that world can be a source of power and compute for your wireless headset that's nearby. Because I think that's one of the things with VR is just that you don't want to have a honking computer on your face. In addition, you just want the headset. And if it could, like, through something like Matter, your HomePod is sitting there powering all of the game, and then it's just casting it to your, and it's casting it. There it is. So like it is, I mean, obviously I'm speaking very low level there, but I just hadn't, that part about having like distributed power in your home that's plugged in, that doesn't require as much, like the balancing act of power versus consumption, then maybe could enable something like this more. So that's a bit of speculation. I am very curious though. I mean, it does make sense just having stuff persistent everywhere plus mobile devices kind of becomes an issue. And so something that ties those together that has consistent power could be a smart home type environment. And it's pretty interesting. So I feel like, I don't know. I did you see there was an interview with, I think this was from The Verge with Keanu Reeves about, because they're doing the whole Matrix movie, and he was just laughing about how he's like, can we not pretend that Facebook came up with the term metaverse? Like, this has been around since the 90s. This is like very much what the Matrix is all about. And then now it's like, oh, this brand new thing that we just came up with. It's like, no, like there's many people's perspectives about what this should be. And most people don't want it centralized around Facebook specifically. And so them to make that huge move is just kind of like, ugh. But I think it's true too. I noticed, I said something to my girlfriend the other day, because it's almost been like, I don't know what, it's been almost 2 full years, and I can't even remember time anymore, but just like when 2 years feels like it passes fairly quickly, that's when you are like, oh yeah, 3 to 5 years or 5 to 10 years time probably does actually seem realistic for something like the metaverse or whatever. It's like, they're on the way now, but it will take them a couple of years, but it's also happening and isn't just like, oh, that'll happen in 5 years, like a 5-year plan. That was what I was referring to. I was trying to do just end of the year planning. And it's like, I remember 5 years ago, I never could have thought of what I wanted to do in 5 years. And now I can, because I've actually gone through it. And so I'm curious.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
With VR stuff of like, I think I saw another stat. I'd have to double check it, but I think the Oculus Quest sold more units than the Xbox, which is supply limited, but that's still notable that lots of people are buying these things. And while the metaverse isn't here, I think virtual reality and the beginnings of all of that are very much here. So it's super interesting. I'll try to find those stats real quick.
All right. Well, while you look for those stats, we will move on to talk about, or actually, we'll move on to take a break and talk about BetterHelp. This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. You can check them out at betterhelp.com/STT. Sometimes you might be going, okay, therapy. What does that involve? In fact, one of the main things with anxiety is giving our brains the opportunity to invent something without knowing what it is. And that can actually be kind of a harmful thing for us to kind of go, this is how the situation is going to go. It's called script writing. And you start to spin out all these different ideas of how a thing might go without actually knowing, and it could be an issue. So let's talk about therapy using some different analogies. We get annual checkups and go to the gym to maintain physical wellness and prevent injury and disease. And we do chores regularly, well, some of us anyway, to avoid a giant mess of a house and, of course, roaches. Going to therapy is like all of these things. It's routine maintenance, but it's for your mental and emotional wellness to prevent bigger issues down the road. Therapy doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means you're investing in yourself to keep your mind healthy. BetterHelp isn't just any online therapy. It's customized for you by offering video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Why invest in everything else and not your mind? This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Smart Tech Today listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/STT. That's BETTERHELP.com/STT. Thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. I wanted to talk about a cool accessibility edition. Quickly, the Portal video chat device is becoming a popular one for folks who are taking care of elderly parents, or they're guardian of an elderly person. Because of the simplicity of use of Meta's Portal, but also because there are a lot of people of that age on those devices. So Meta is trying to make the devices more accessible by adding sign language interpretation for those video calls. Now you can connect to a service that has both English and Spanish language, sign language. I know that's a little doubled up there, but sign language for English and Spanish to be able to properly communicate with other people. I think this is fantastic.
Yeah, this is just amazing. And I feel like Portal has actually like led the way in these kind of realms, even though I bet the employees at Facebook or at Meta, I have to say it, I bet they really don't feel like they get any credit for leading the way with this stuff. But because kind of nobody cares about the Portal in a very slapdash way of throwing that out there. But I do think the people who have it are really appreciative of it. And for this kind of reason too, like I do feel like just kind of like not, besides being part of that company, this does seem like the best kind of product for staying in communication with your friends and family in this kind of way. And it makes sense that sign language obviously is a critical part of that and should be fundamental to the platform, because otherwise you are excluding tons and tons of people. And that's got to be like even worse when it's the best platform by far for connecting to people except for you, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So this is cool to see for sure.
I agree.
I feel like, yeah. And they have all the augmented reality stuff that they're doing too, that you can kind of play around with. So maybe that'll help if your face is distorted or something. They can also do subtitles and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's another little announcement from CES. LG has what's called the StandbyME TV, which is a wireless television on wheels. So this TV will, I'll stand by you. Won't let nobody hurt you.
Boom, boom,
the television
boom,
will
boom,
move along with you.
Boom, boom, boom. Sorry, I thought about starting the show off with that song because of this title in the same way.
It's actually spelled without the D, so
it's Stand By Me.
Like as in like
Stand by.
Isn't that the thing with California accents? Is we don't say the consonants at the ends of words, so it's just Stand By Me.
Oh.
That is when you're like
that
a
makes
fanboy
sense.
or fangirl or something. I don't know.
So StandbyME is it now. Oh God, it's a 27-inch display.
CES.
Exactly.
The name too.
You can move it up and down how you want to. It does have a very short battery life of 3 hours, so it's not going to stay for a long time before you need to recharge it. It says you can use the StandbyME to view whatever content you want because it has Netflix, YouTube, Prime Video. It also has mobile screen mirroring, so you can move it around as you need to. And you can also put a little device on top so you can take video calls or, do that kind of thing. That part's kind of interesting. Being able to sort of set it up where you need to in a room and have it just work where it is. So it's like a TV cart, but it's all built into one thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally it. It's just the TV and the cart as one. I would totally use this. I'm not gonna lie, because
I know I would too.
I am an iPad person, and so I spend I think I've become a pro during the pandemic at carrying multiple computers around with me at all times, and it's just like I will always have an iPad under my arm or something. And obviously this is a little bit different, but like I have a laptop stand that I will bring into the kitchen and put an iPad on it to watch something while I'm like cooking or something like that. And this is just that product itself. I have a Chromecast because I want to be able to watch videos and things like that in my office, but it's not, I have moved my desk, so it's not an ideal spot now. And I would like to move it around depending on what I'm doing. And if something like this had Matter support even, and you could cast to it from anywhere, like, I mean, I guess Matter, I guess it could be, it might be Thread. I'm just thinking because it's not plugged in, it's not exactly the same, but I don't know. I think it's actually a pretty cool idea. I almost wish they didn't make it as silly of a title to make it seem like a joke than a real thing.
Was this an April Fool's release?
I mean, that's what I mean. It's like pure CES material where it's like kind of like too expensive and slightly bad, but actually you'd kind of want it, but they're never going to do it. And so it just kind of dies on the vine or something like that. But I don't know. It is, I think that's just what's a shame is stuff like this could make sense in the world that we're living now, but kind of the scale of companies that they have to operate at can mean that something like this, that's a decent idea, just ends up not working. Or like, I don't know, like I could see like a Roku version of this for some reason, that they would do that and actually serve their users and not just their shareholders or something like that a company like LG has to. So that was a weird meta criticism, but
hey,
still, I would use this.
We still appreciate it. Yeah. This next one is definitely for bringing in the holiday spirit, ringing in the holiday joy, and striking up the holiday fireplace. Because you out there, if you've got an ALEXA device, can change the voice, not to Shaquille O'Neal, not to Samuel L. Jackson, not to Melissa McCarthy, but to Santa Claus himself. Yes, this is the latest celebrity voice added to the device, and all you have to do is say,
yeah, wait a second.
enable Hey Santa.
That's fair.
Oh, I guess I have mine unplugged because it was annoying me. So with your device, you can turn on Hey Santa to get it going. And then from that point, you can say, Hey Santa, or actually you have to say ALEXA, ask Saint Nick to sing songs, ask Santa to sing songs, crack jokes, tell stories, or you can actually have Santa respond to typical ALEXA commands like setting timers or playing music.
Yeah,
it just has
cool.
a festive, fun voice.
Who can get Santa to say an inappropriate song name out loud? I guess they probably censor it.
No,
anyways.
naughty.
But I do love that it's like Santa will happily flip a virtual coin, but he won't roll a virtual dice. It's just like, nope, Santa can't do it. I actually did just send this to
he can recite pie.
Yeah, that's if you need it. Christmas pie. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I just sent this to my brother because I actually do want to see. My nephew is like, he's 3. And so this is like, Santa is coming to his house this year. I don't know if you know, it's a big deal. He's getting pretty excited. And so I am like, I want him to my brother to put this on and just like see a video of my nephew just being like, oh my God, it's Santa kind of thing. So
yeah,
that is pretty cute. I like it.
Amazon is basically the modern day Santa.
That's true. I mean,
every December,
as long as you don't ask
that
it
is
for
true.
what's coming in the mail, then you're good. But they got a little bit for that now.
Jeffrey Bezos with all those reindeer.
Did you hear that I saw somebody say that he doesn't like music, and they're like, that explains so much. Just like,
wow, yeah, I all suddenly understand him. Wow. I only know there may be like 3 people that I know who feel that way. That's so interesting. He's
exactly.
one of those folks who doesn't like music. Now, I've met a person who's actually pretty cool who doesn't like music, but the other people that I know who don't like music were very Jeffrey Bezos like. So that's interesting, huh? I wonder what does he just sit in silence?
Something like that, yeah.
Dead air,
just
man,
creepy.
dead air, just sitting in silence, man. Well, anyway. I guess there's no Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen jams playing at his house around the holidays. I guess Mariah Carey doesn't get to play at his house during the holidays, which is fine. Let's move on to a quick little check-in on the promise I made. I talked about the Nest Hub, which this Nest Hub is kind of cool. The latest generation Nest Hub, it does not have a camera on it. Instead, it offers sleep tracking functionality, and they've really created it to kind of be an alarm clock for next to your bed, or an all-purpose device that sits next to your bed. You don't have to feel uncomfortable about it watching you, but it does have the radar technology that lets it track your sleep. And so for a while now, I've been giving it a go to see how it compares to the sleep tracking that is built into my bed by way of an under mattress sleep tracker. And I am pleasantly surprised at the overall accuracy. I will say it's not as in depth as some of the other as the sleep tracker that I use that's underneath my bed, my Beauty Rest sleep tracker. It's also a little more shamey than the ones that I've gotten before. So in my sleep report, it's like, you're not getting to bed on time, and it shows me how many times I missed my chosen bedtime. But what I was impressed with is that it was able to determine, because this is one of the things that I always talk about with sleep tracking, is you often have to proactively tell it, I'm going to bed now. And that's what I like about my under mattress sleep tracker, is that I don't have to. It can sense and use all of that stuff to figure out when I'm actually going to bed and when I'm not. And this actually has done a good job. I may sit down in the bed as I'm winding down and I'm typing something out and, getting everything done. And then I go to bed, and it was actually able to tell the difference between them. The one problem that I have run into is that it, in the middle of the night, apparently has at times when, so this is not a two-person sleep tracking device, unlike my under mattress Beauty Rest, which has 2 spots. So in the middle of the night at one point, because it's on my side of the bed, you have to angle it towards you pretty heavily and place it just right. So that was kind of another thing that I was annoyed by. But the big thing is that it's supposed to be...
Sorry. So it has to point at you? Pretty specific.
Yeah, let me think about it. So this is the front of the screen. I'm holding my iPhone's parallel to the camera. And the front middle of it needs to be in view of your chest. So I had to kind of move it out on my side table and angle it a little bit further down the way of the bed so that it was facing. So instead of it, the normal way that I would put it would be more, it would be sort of perpendicular to where I am, up against the kind of the wall where my nightstand is, maybe just a little bit angled in the corner. Instead, I kind of had to almost turn it fully to facing me, which it doesn't look as visually appealing sitting there that way, because when you walk into the room, you can't really see the screen because it's facing
totally. That makes sense, though. That's why I asked, is because that seems important. It's like I almost would like leave it normally and then just pull it out at night or something.
At night, yeah, exactly. That's probably a good idea to do that. Put it on a little lazy Susan and do that. Oh, so what was happening is, it's just tracking my sleep at night. It's monitoring my chest movement, breathing, and everything like that. And unfortunately, it picked up a couple of times my partner's movement in bed. They show here how it's not paying attention to the other person. That is not entirely true, or at least it wasn't in my case, because over the course of the night a few times, Sebastian said he had adjusted, and upon doing so, the screen lit up bright and like blasted his retinas. And so luckily it did not wake me up. I never noticed it, but it thought that I was raising from bed and thought that it was time to show me what was on the display. So I think they could do a good job, do a better job of better paying attention to the luminance sensor that it does have in it. Because if I walk into the room right now, the screen will be, well, it'll probably be dark because it doesn't sense anybody in the room. But the second I come into the room, it will light up because the room is bright. But if the room is entirely dark, I don't care if you see me moving around. You should not light up the screen and blast my retinas if I was to wake up in the middle of the night. So that part I thought they could use some work on. But again, the big thing overall is that I was very impressed at its accuracy, because I thought for sure this was going to be like, I've got covers on top of me. I've got, you're only seeing kind of part of my body. You're not seeing everything. And how are you going to see through 2 layers of blankets? And sometimes I'm cradling a pillow, and sometimes, all these different ways that I might change the way that I'm sleeping. When the sensor is underneath the mattress, it doesn't care about all of that stuff because it's not looking at me. It's feeling me. So I thought that the looking at me was going to be an issue more so than it was. And so, if you're looking for a sleep tracker and you don't want to go under the mattress, or you want kind of a multi-purpose device, I was incredibly impressed with this for sure. I think it's quite good.
I'm curious if you have these for you and your partner, if it can disambiguate for you, that it
that would be nice.
That he was the one who was snoring, it can cancel it out of yours, and not, even though it can't technically account for both. If that might be some sort of privacy thing, but maybe. Oh,
but if you're in a family together. Because Google has their own family thing, and Amazon has their own family thing, so that could work. I'm sure they'll work on that too, because you could also say this is a bed pair or something, and so then on both devices you type in a code from the other device or whatever, and then it pairs them. So there's all sorts of things where that could be worked out. But I like my Beauty Rest sleep tracker overall because it's something I never have to pay attention to. I've used it for a long time now, and it's not in the way at all. It's entirely out of the way. Regardless, again, very impressed with this sleep technology. It's cool that it can do this, and I do love having a little dynamic picture frame in my bedroom where I can see photos all the time that get updated.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the Nest Hub itself is a great product too, and as a bedside thing, is one of the other main spots that I'd see using it besides the kitchen. With
no camera to worry about, which is really nice. I was able to,
because the Max has the camera, but not the second gen. The Nest Hub never had a camera itself, the small one, but the second gen adds the sleep tracking without the camera. And I think that can't the Max also do sleep tracking? I thought that's where it originally came, and maybe that's why it was so weird, because I was like, why would you buy a Max just to do sleep tracking? But I'm
not sure.
Nice, good times.
All right, folks. It is time for our picks of the week. Coming next, our picks of the week. Matthew Casanelli, tell me about your pick of the week and its price.
This week, and I actually got this on Black Friday. It's not exactly smart tech, but it has made my desk setup come together perfectly, and I feel like that is something worth noting. I got one of those Grove-made felt desk mats. So this is a company, I think this is the same company that 10 years ago made iPhone cases out of skateboard parts and have fully gone into like hardware and wood and now like these nice looking aesthetic desk things. But it's basically just a large piece of felt that's cut nicely and sewn and has a nice leather tag on the end. But I got the large one, and I think it was on sale for like $100. It's a little expensive otherwise, but it basically just takes the center of my desk and gives me a place to put all my stuff that otherwise I had like smaller desk mats that would only fit my keyboard. And then I try to, basically for me is like, I always have an iPad or a notebook and like a Stream Deck and things like that nearby. And I'd have them and I'd be juggling them around and shifting them out of the way. And now it's all just on one big thing, and I can just slide it in and out of my desk and like move things along. So I've just really appreciated it. And sometimes something that just looks and feels nice is a very good addition to your setup because it's just pleasant and you enjoy where you're working all day long, every day, a lot better. So I was pretty satisfied to get. I know I was like, I got to get this on sale.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Company.
It's a lot
for a belt.
It is, but
maybe cut your own belt if you really want it.
Cut your own felt. No, I completely understand though. It's one of the, sometimes you make a purchase that, hey, it costs a little bit, but it's a gift for yourself, and you kind of, covet it for a while, and then you go, all right, I'm getting this, and you're happy with it. That's the important thing. It was enough to make it a pick of the week, so clearly you're happy with it.
I guess it felt right.
Definitely.
Oh my God, it felt right.
Mm-hmm. How many times have we? I feel like we've had like 4 cringe moments on this episode. I love
the
it.
cringiest episode of Smart Tech Today. All right. I spoke about Eve earlier, and I did want to mention that newly arrived to my humble abode is the new Eve room that adds thread support. So there are many a device that that Eve offers that all it took was a firmware update to add thread support. Then there were some products that it actually took a hardware revision to add thread support. And then there were some products that Eve was wanting to work on improving anyway to add thread support as well. And, kind of going all in. This is the Eve room. What's cool about the Eve room is that it's not only is it you charge it, so you don't have to put a battery in it, but you can just charge it with a USB micro USB. I mean, but it also has an e-ink display that obviously takes up less battery than your typical display. It is a $99.95 device, but that's because it is a multi-sensor for your home. So it has a lot of sensing capabilities to measure the temperature, the humidity, and the air quality using the volatile organic compound measurements to do so. Now, if you don't have a Thread home, then it will work over Bluetooth, but if you do have a Thread home, this is fantastic. And what I like is that it works with my existing Eve Thread stuff to make it to work just fine with everything else. And then if I pair this with an Eve plug, which is also supported via Thread, then what I can do is have my Eve room that measures the humidity, the temperature, and the air quality. And when the humidity drops below a certain point, then the power comes on for the plug and immediately kicks on my humidifier. And of course, from there, you can go on and on and on with a whole bunch of different automations you can set up. But with Thread, it's even more lickety split at how quickly it starts working, which I just love, that the responsiveness is so excellent. So I've got this set up in my office right now, and I'm just using it to track temperature and air quality. Nice. And I say this in the best way. It's just like Eve Rooms past, in that it does what you expect it to do, measuring air quality and temperature, et cetera. But one of the things that makes Eve kind of unique among these different sensors is that The Eve app has a really great history feature, a kind of trend feature that keeps track of these measurements over time. So you can start to get a picture of how your room or rooms, depending on where you put it, the air changes over the course of a day, over the course of a week, over the course of a month. And once you start to see those trends, you can start to decide the changes you need to make to improve upon that. So excellent.
Do you know... does it track the data in the background with Thread, or do you still have to open the app? Because that is one thing that I run into with mine.
That's a good question.
Because like even right now, I think I might be exactly at the limit where I haven't opened it in a month, and so it starts to.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, whether you have to kind of open it up every once in a while. You know, I will have to check with them on that. I don't know that I've ever run into that. Because I have the reason why for me it hasn't been an issue is because I have a home bridge dealie that is constantly pulling from the Eve room, so that always kind of keeps it updated. But yeah, it's syncing just now with the app. I'm not sure how much it keeps at a time, but that's something I will look into.
I think mine's 28 days at least. But I'm curious. Even just the speed of getting the data. So fast. Yeah, because I'm curious if it would work out of the box, but I have a thing to check my Eve room using shortcuts, and it just takes like 8 seconds or something like that because it's going over Bluetooth to it. And so I'm curious if that's just instant with you, because that actually, I kind of don't use it that much because it just kind of takes some time, and it's like seemingly doing simple math, but it's slower than any of my other shortcuts. And so if that was instant, I would probably end up doing a lot more with it just because I don't want to sit there and wait for it to run every time. Interesting. Also, I noticed, by the way, you need to open a window because you only got 3 stars of air quality in there.
You did see that, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah. I'm not doing so hot right now. And, humidity could be better too. 48%. It's 81 degrees in here. Yeah. No wonder I'm burning up. Good Lord. These lights are so hot. And this door has been closed for so long.
You got to get some aperture lights. Those are a little less hot.
Are they cooler?
Yeah, that's it. They sent me one a little while back, and they have all these lower cost ones now that actually are pretty awesome. So good setup. I'll put a link in the show notes for one of those.
Yeah, please do. And in the meantime, I'm going to stop blowing out hot air. I've had 2 shows today, so that's why it's so warm in here. You can email us if you've got questions, thoughts. If we missed a link that you really want, to stt@twit.tv. We record new episodes of the show Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 21:30 UTC. That UTC time might be wrong, but the Eastern and Pacific times are correct. If you would like to get all of our shows ad-free, you should check out Club Twit, because for $7 a month, you can get every single one of our Twitch shows with no ads. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, before the show, after the show, behind the scenes, etc., and access to the members-only Discord server. If you're wondering what a Discord server is, well, if you've used Microsoft Teams or Slack or one of those other chat platforms, then you'll be familiar with it once you hop in. It's a great place to chat with fellow members of Club Twit, but also us folks here at Twit. It's a fun place to hang out. Twit.tv/clubtwit. $7 a month gets you all of that. And we heard that some folks wanted to subscribe and support shows directly. So there is a great way to do that by going to Apple Podcasts and finding the audio version of the show, and then tapping to subscribe to the show. For $2.99 a month, you get the audio version of the show ad-free. So yeah, you just tap in Apple Podcasts on the audio feed, and you'll get an ad-free version of the audio. All right, Matthew Casanelli, if folks want to follow you online and check out all your great work, where do they go to do so?
you can go to matthewcastanelli.com/Siri shortcuts, and then also matthewcastanelli.com/newsletter, because I've been really pushing on my shortcuts newsletter lately and doing lots of fun stuff there, and then kind of teasing my catalog that's officially now launching in the new year. I feel like this year got away from everybody, but
Yes.
it's the end of the year kind of, but I'm so excited because I have so much shortcut stuff coming. And I don't know if people have noticed that shortcuts for Mac has just been getting really good. Like every week there's just a new app or something like that that expands the capabilities, and it's pretty awesome. I feel like if you blink you'll miss it, so definitely sign up to stay in touch. What about you?
I am at Micah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode, and we will see you, both Matthew and myself, we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Android is constantly evolving, and if you're part of the Android faithful, then you'll be just as excited about it as I am. I'm Jason Howell, host of All About Android, along with my co-hosts Florence Ion and Ron Richards, where every week we cover the news, we cover the hardware, and we cover the apps that are driving the Android ecosystem. Plus, we invite people who are writing about Android, talking about Android, and making Android onto the show. Every Tuesday at twit.tv, look for All About Android.